United States submarine base at Key West, Florida. A dispatch that quoted President Truman's press secretary, Charles Ross, as saying that President Truman has no knowledge of any secret project by this government that would give substance to the existence of such objects. Ross also said that both the Air Force and the Navy deny that such objects exist.
Hi. I feel like I'm just so excited to say who I am today. I'm just going to jump right into it. I don't even have to fluff it up a bit. Hey, what's up? My name is Noelle, and I am the fangirl edit of the United Healthcare Assassin.
And I'm Chelsea. I am the 3 bullet casings that say delay, deny, and depose that were left at the crime scene.
Slay it down, girl. Slay it down.
Beautiful. I love art. I love poetry.
I love art. I love poetry. I love performance art. Wishing him a very speedy evasion from the police and long, prosperous life. So
remember, you didn't see him. You thought you seen him.
No, you didn't.
No, you didn't.
No, you didn't. I will say before we get into the episode, I see this clip from Shameless. Anyone who's watched Shameless knows it. It's like when the military comes to question Lip and they hold up a picture of his brother and they're like, "Do you know this man?" And he goes, "I've never seen him before in my life." And then they go knock, and then the cops go and knock on Frank's door and they're like, "Have you seen this?" And it's like they say his whole name, like his son, and he's like, "I don't know who the hell you're talking about," and then slams the door. And I'm like, that's how it should be.
Beautiful energy. Yeah.
So
it's same with like Terminator 2. It's like, I don't know. I've never seen this man before in my life.
Exactly. Speaking of things that you may have never seen in your life, we're going to talk about Krampus.
I love Krampus.
Yeah, I actually, as someone who is a Krampus fangirl, I learned something new today, and you will learn it too, and it'll be surprising. Not shocking, but surprising. So, Krampus's origins as a figure from pagan winter solstice rituals tie him to the broader history of ancient European folklore that celebrated and feared the forces of nature. Winter solstice marked a liminal time of year, a transition between light and darkness, life and death, when supernatural forces were believed to be at their strongest. These traditions often involved rites to appease spirits, drive away malevolent beings, and ensure the return of the sun. Krampus's origins break off from this context, but before we get into him, let's get into the origins that explain where he came from. In pre-Christian mythology, or simply paganism, the Wild Hunt was a spectral procession of spirits, often led by a powerful deity such as Odin in Norse mythology, or in more alpine regions, Frau Perchta, who, depending on where you're located, is either depicted as a kind goddess who rewards good behavior, and at other times, and most times, as a witch who punishes the bad by gutting them and stuffing them with straw. You're looking up a picture of her. It's fun.
That she reminds me of Baba Yaga. I love it.
Yeah, she does look like Baba.
There's like a photo. Cool.
Yeah, she's very Baba Yaga adjacent.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
So fun. And some stories of the Wild Hunt have your favorite, King Arthur, in the British variant as the head. So anyway, just a quick little shout out to our Odin is Santa episode as well. But
also, I read that. I believe that you wrote it. I believe what you wrote is true. I have no recollection that we did an Odin is Santa episode.
We for sure did.
I have no, but that's also, I didn't remember that we did an Arthur episode until you just said it. You were like, your favorite, King Arthur. And I was like, I do like King Arthur. Wouldn't that be crazy if we did an episode about him?
You need to go see a specialist, dude.
Yes, a TBI.
Crazy, but
I think that one time where I flipped backwards out of the chair, I probably should have gone to the hospital. Right on my head. Yeah. And things have not been the same since.
Yeah, go ahead and blame that and not in the last 10 years. But
yeah.
Whatever you want to say. These hunts were believed to take place across the winter skies during Yule. It was both respected with reverence and feared. The spirits of the wild hunt were a mix of the worldly dead, particularly those who died violently, prematurely, or without proper burial rites. Other worldly beings, such as Chelsea's cough.
Sorry. Well, I was going to say something and then I was like, that's rude to interrupt. I'm going to turn off. Okay, so I love the idea of the wild hunt because Artemis, too, is often depicted as a deer. And then, fun fact, this is a shout out to Typhoid Taylor. Oliver's book club is reading A Court of Thorns and Roses.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, and I was interested, so I read the Wikipedia, and it starts out with a hunt where someone gets shot and there's a little bit of shenanigans and mixed identities. So I think it is interesting, the idea of having hunts where you are both expected to go out and produce, but you're also running the risk that the thing you're hunting could be a deity.
Yeah, that is. And it's interesting that it's kind of like, well, I mean, I talk about it, how it's like all connected to folklore and folklore's lessons, but so it makes sense.
You can't throw a stick without Zeus being a fucking swan or a cow, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Or Odin's ravens. He's depicted all that stuff. So it's fun to see how it all is connected. There was a starting point and then it all trickled down into the different iterations. It's like the Heretic movie all over
again.
Dude,
I know it. Trust me. I'll talk a little bit about Christianity in a second. But so otherworldly beings, such as horned, animalistic, or demonic creatures, often depicted as goat-like or wolf-like, and they were said to serve as enforcers for the hunt leader. And as Chelsea alluded, we can pull back even further, grabbing from Greek mythology to understand these specific animal hybrids as like the choices of the hunt. The Greek god Pan, often depicted with goat-like legs and horns, was a complex figure associated with both fertility, but mostly a wild, untamed nature. And he wasn't inherently evil, but his association with the wilderness was like, that's what coded him as like mischievous, and he had like negative connotations because of that. And then wolves, specifically the story of Lycaon, who attempted to trick Zeus into eating human flesh, ending with Zeus transforming him into a wolf as punishment, highlighting the concept of transformation and the duality of human nature. Everything always means something.
It's very neat.
And in a lighter, less Greek note, in some variations of the hunt, elves or fairies were involved as well.
Yeah, that's the King Arthur thing. Like he gets seduced on a hunt, and I think the deer or stag turns into the Morrigan or something like that.
Yeah, dude, it's like so interesting to see, because we always say like, yeah, everything's connected, everything's an iteration of the other thing, but when you see it on a timeline, you're like, damn. It really just is.
Exactly. Yeah. That stuff's so fascinating. Like how, I don't know. It's just fascinating how everything comes together like that.
We're going to go into how pagan was morphed into, was co-opted into Christianity, but I don't know as much about what Greek to pagan. Like I don't know that connection specifically, like the anthropological breakdown that caused it. So it would be interesting to look that up. But anyway, people would describe the sounds of galloping hooves, however you want to say it, howling in the winds, and blood-curdling cries during the nights of the hunt. Those who encountered it risked being kidnapped, killed, or cursed. For example, people might be abducted into the hunt and forced to join. From an anthropological perspective, stories like the hunt served as practical tools for survival, wrapped in layers of myth and cultural meaning. Folklore, after all, is often a way for communities to encode important lessons and behavioral norms using fear and respect to ensure compliance. Like Chelsea said, with you couldn't throw a stick at an animal without that animal being Zeus and then punishing you. And the lesson there is like, don't fuck with the fucking animals, right?
But it's also like you're expected to produce from the hunt. It's like very... They're moving the goalposts, and I love that.
Yeah. Well, of course, like you have to. So, and in a similar vein, much like the dietary rules in the Bible, like avoiding pork to prevent trichinosis, or what people understood was something that made you die after eating pig, the wild hunt was meant to scare the fuck out of you so you didn't freeze to death or wander into danger in the dead of winter. I also hope we're noticing how these themes evolve with cultural shifts, like, for example, something happening to people who are bad. Just a little foreshadowing there. The transformation of the wild hunt into modern Christian traditions was a gradual process that took over several centuries. This transformation was shaped by a combination of Christianization, the blend of local pagan customs, and evolving cultural practices. So let's talk more into the 8th and 12th century. As Christianity spread through Scandinavia, Germany, and other parts of Europe, many of the pagan traditions, including the wild hunt, were absorbed into Christian practices. Odin and his role in the wild hunt were eventually reinterpreted as the wild hunt was a central part of winter solstice celebrations. Early Christian missionaries often tried to co-opt these pagan festivals, merging them with Christian celebrations, the Christian celebration of Christmas. God, say that 5 times fast. It's also fun to note that the Bible doesn't specify the exact month of Jesus' birth. Biblical scholars have used various clues and calculations to estimate the time, suggesting a birth date around September or October based on references to shepherds tending their flock at night, which is more likely to occur during the fall months in the region. But Christian leaders knew they needed a way to get the pagan motherfuckers on board, so they decided on a December 25th celebration, which would coincide with pagan winter festivals. Instead of being led by Odin, the wild hunt leader morphed into the figure of St. Nicholas, who was a 4th century bishop from Myra in modern-day Turkey, who, in some traditions, would visit children during the winter months, rewarding the good and punishing the naughty. However, the more fearsome elements of the hunt were maintained in figures like Krampus, a horned goat-like, they say demon, but I don't want to say demon, who would punish misbehaving children. Krampus is deeply rooted and specifically in Central Europe, where pagan traditions like the wild hunt persisted longer due to the cultural isolation and strong attachment to pre-Christian beliefs. That's why in areas like Austria, Germany, Hungary, and parts of Scandinavia, the Krampus traditions grew as a counterpart to St. Nicholas, and he maintained the wild hunt-like figures of the culture's long-standing winter traditions. The adoption of St. Nicholas varied across other parts of Europe and explains why Krampus didn't always follow him. In areas where Protestantism took hold, like parts of Northern Europe, the focus shifted more towards the religious significance of Christmas, emphasizing the birth of Christ rather than figures like St. Nicholas or Krampus. The shift was largely due to the Protestant Reformation, during which many Protestant reformers believed that honoring saints was a form of idolatry or worshiping something other than God. As a result, the popularity of St. Nicholas and, in hand, Krampus declined among Protestants. So that's how you have the geographical split across Europe, with those who celebrated Krampus and those who didn't. You are muted. Or have you been talking this whole time?
I've been making comments, but I was like, I'm just trying not to be rude. Fuck me. I'm trying to be polite because I'm coughing. Anyway, I asked my grandma about Krampus, my grandma, German. They weren't allowed to talk about him because of like Catholicism and stuff. And she
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was like, oh, how much of this do you like remember from your childhood? And she's like, we were not allowed.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. We will. There are 2 groups of people who said banish Krampus. One of them was the Catholics, and I'll let you try to figure out who the second one was before we get there. So now we can see that the creation of St. Nicholas and Krampus came as a means of preserving pagan culture while still trying to assimilate into Christian ideology. Just as the hunt punished those who disrespected the natural and spiritual order, Krampus emerged as a disciplinarian, handing out punishments to naughty children. His dual nature, part beast, part spirit, places him firmly in the lineage of the wild hunt figures. He embodies the harshness of winter, reminding people of the consequences of bad behavior and the precarious balance of life during the harsh season. So while Krampus may not have ridden in the skies along Odin or Frau Perchta, his role as a goat-like enforcer is connected to the fears and cultural lessons encoded in the myth of the Wild Hunt. The association between goats and demonic or devilish figures in Christianity and how this connects to mythology and folklore is truly one of the most layered things to explain, but I hope we've kind of got a base layer down by now before I go into it.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you get it? Do you feel like we're going with this? Because there's one thing I need to like remind myself, right? Because I always wonder, how did we get here? Where did this come from? Why are we here? What's the meaning of life? No, but like when I found out that biblically speaking, Jesus was not born on December 25th, I was like, then where the fuck did we come up with that? You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck? You're just pulling shit out of your ass. And it's like, oh no, it's because they needed to like co-opt the pagans. And so like, this is how they morphed it. And that's also why you have a literal fucking tree with lights in your fucking living room, because that comes from the pagan celebrations of like respecting nature. And like, it's all fucking connected, because you would sit there and say, hey, real quick, what the fuck does a pine tree, or whatever the fuck they are, have a Douglas fir have to do in my fucking living room, have to do with Jesus Christ? That doesn't make any fucking sense.
It's funny too for like people to like fear that concept, right? Like, don't talk about that. And it's like, well, you should be able to talk about like where the origins of your beliefs came from, and the fact that some people are like, no, it's a secret. It's like, we all fucking know where it came from.
We all know. We all know. But it's interesting because it's like people. Okay, let me take the stance of someone who believes in religion for a second. And maybe this is a little inspired by Heretic, who knows? If you are trying to grow your religion because you think, okay, I'll say Christianity. If you are trying to grow Christianity because you genuinely believe it in your heart of hearts, and you genuinely believe that you need to convert people to this following of Christ because that's how they will be redeemed and saved, and their lives will have meaning and purpose, and it's just going to be like an enlightenment, right? If you genuinely believe that, then like doing PR is okay. Like, yeah, we've got to do that. We've got to have a marketing campaign that we send out to get people to come along. And I think that the marketing campaign for Christianity was deciding that they're actually going to like change Jesus's birthday to December 25th so they can get the fucking weird pagans on board.
Yeah.
And like, it's funny because I don't think when it was decided, when it happened, when this like evolution happened, that it was like this, I don't know, condescending secret. Like, I don't think they did it like that. I think they did it as like this happy merger, but now it's seen as like blasphemous to almost bring it up.
Which is crazy because I learned about this in church.
Yeah.
It's like, it was important to know that what we were celebrating was more of like a man-made date. But it's, you know, it's like, yeah, we picked the date a little bit, but it's too late to change it now. We've assigned the nickname to the baby. Now they're going to be known that for the rest of their life.
Yeah, exactly. So, another thing that I asked myself while understanding all of this, how Krampus ties to religion somehow, is why a goat? So
why a goat, though?
Yeah,
why is it always a goat? Like,
I'll tell you, girl. I figured it out.
Goats are cute.
I know. I cracked the code.
Okay. I'm ready to learn.
We mentioned Pan, the Greek god of the wild, and we also had the satyr. Similar to Pan, they were goat-like. Satyr. Okay. Yes, satyr. They were goat-like creatures that roamed the forest and mountains, often depicted as hedonistic and mischievous. They were part of the Dionysian cult, associated with excess, intoxication, and debauchery. Okay, do we see a theme?
Well, and Dionysus is thought to be another reincarnation or reiteration of Jesus. So, okay, and they're like going hand in hand so far.
Yeah. So then, so like we're seeing this pattern, right? You have like Odin, and then you have like the monsters, and then you have Saint Nicholas, and then you have Krampus, and then you have like here like Dionysus, and then the satyrs, right?
Satyrs.
Satyrs.
Yes.
God, I'll never be able to say it. And I even tried to
I
write,
need
I
you to
even
I need you to
tried
say it.
to fucking say it phonetically. I even wrote it out. I can't. I won't do it. So like, and there's a theme, right? We see a theme here.
Yeah.
A little theme. Yeah. So
I want to just there.
There we go. Satyr.
You phonetically wrote it wrong.
Well,
and I'm saying
satyr.
that from a cunt perspective.
I'm trying. I'm not gonna change my ways. I'm so sorry. It's sadder. In Norse traditions, Thor traveled in a chariot drawn by two magical goats. And Chelsea, interesting you would say this about my pronunciation. Feel free to tap into your blonde heritage and pronounce these. These are the two names of Thor's goats.
Okay. Tangrisnir and Tangnostor.
I think that was really good.
Is it? I don't know. I have no idea.
I think the first one was more believable.
Hold on, let me just do something real quick.
Are you going to look up how to pronounce them?
Tangnostor. That was the first one, or that was the second one. Tangnostor. I was pretty close. Tangnostor. And then the first one, so Tangnostor and Tangrisnir. Tangrisnir, Tangnostir.
That's good. Look at you.
Thank you. I don't know why my voice has to go down when I say it. Like,
yeah, it's like the Norse accurate way to say it. So
yeah.
And these ghosts weren't like evil like the other goats, but they were.
No, they're adorable in the movie.
They're adorable, and they were associated with strength and power, but they were just like another, I don't know, still floating goat lore around. So as Christianity spread throughout Europe, one of its primary goals was to suppress pagan beliefs and practices. Pagan gods, spirits, and symbols were often reinterpreted in Christian terms, like we saw above with the Wild Hunt and Christmas. And honestly, just like all of it, winter solstice, Yule, the whole thing. Yeah. Pagan gods, spirits, and symbols. Oh, it doesn't matter. I said that. The chaotic and often animalistic representations of nature gods and spirits like Pan and the satyrs. Satyr?
Yeah.
Satyr. God, I still wanted to say satyr. Were seen as manifestations of evil or demonic forces. In this process, animals associated with those spirits, particularly goats, became linked to Satan and demon imagery. So it was just like a means to an ends. Okay? But then we also get goat imagery in the Bible, specifically the book of Matthew, where Jesus uses the metaphor of sheep and goats to illustrate the final judgment. The sheep represent those who have followed God or Jesus, whatever you want to fucking say, and will inherit eternal life, while the goats represent those who have not and will be condemned to eternal punishment, further solidifying the negative symbolism with goats. Which is how we, over time, it didn't happen, it was another over time evolution, we started to depict Satan in Christian iconography as a goat-like figure, incorporating elements from both Greek and pagan imagery to like demonize it and kind of like make it associated with something negative into the Christian theology interpretations of evil. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I watched even a documentary about this with the way that we depict goats and stuff, and like there used to be a trend where everything was depicted as like a blue devil.
Yeah, like,
and then the goat came in. Like the devil used to be like a blue little demon.
Yeah, because like go ahead and try to find somewhere in the Bible, any of them, any version, any version from any iteration from any branch off of Christianity. Try to find something that says that Satan looks like a goat. Yeah. You can't, because it doesn't exist.
Right.
It's another one of those things that came back down to the marketing PR of the church. And I say church in this context, not as the Mormon church, but Christianity, Catholicism. They had to do the marketing to demonize the goat spirits that people used to fuck with heavily. How
Yeah,
do you
because
do that?
Dionysus was like fucking popular.
Mhm.
So they would have to shit on him.
Yeah, how do you like okay, so like how do you beat the appreciation of goat deities or goat spirits or goat mythological creatures? Like how do you beat that out of the culture? You make it the literal manifestation of the devil.
Oh, works every time.
I know. I know it. So let's talk about him.
Yeah.
Saint Nicholas and Krampus together form a moral balance. One rewards virtue, while the other punishes vice. They symbolize the interplay between creation and destruction, good and evil, light and dark. Insert any of the other ones you can think of. Krampus is a personification of chaos. His feared presence reinforces the importance of good behavior and social harmony. Krampusnacht, or Krampus Night, is celebrated on December 5th, the eve of St. Nicholas Day, December 6th. Particularly in parts of Central Europe, including Austria, Germany, Hungary, etc. Towns and villages hold Krampus parades, known as, go ahead and try to pronounce that, Kramplufa? What is that?
Krampuslofa.
Krampuslofa. That's an
Yeah.
interesting way to spell loaf. But that just means Krampus runs.
Krampuslofa. Krampuslofa. Everything in German just sounds so sassy.
Sassy. It is sassy.
Uh-huh.
During these events, participants dress up as Krampus and take to the streets to frighten onlookers, especially children. People in these Krampus costumes wear elaborate masks and fur-covered suits. The masks are typically made of wood or paper mache and are painted to resemble the goat hybrid, with long, curved horns, sharp teeth, and usually a long, pointed tongue. And the costumes are metal as fuck. Go look them up. Krampus also carries chains, like actual chains, or bells, and he usually has birch branches or whips. So like he's like slapping the chain on the ground and then whipping you with a birch branch that has like
so
a little
fun.
bell on it. Yeah.
Oh, it has a bell.
It's very cute. And he uses it to strike kids who have been naughty. And even in like the Krampus parades, like I don't want to say they did it metaphorically. No, they were slapping kids. So,
well,
classic Germany.
They do that over there.
I know. In traditional celebrations, Krampus would visit homes or town squares, scaring children into behaving well. Krampus is said to kidnap bad children and carry them away in a basket or a sack to be either eaten or taken to his lair for punishment, which is where we get the term riding to hell in a handbasket.
Oh, no shit.
Mm-hmm. And to get ready for this one, girl. And to signify to parents that he took their bad kids, he would leave coal on the child's bed, which is where we get coal for naughty kids.
We're taking everything
I know
that we can from this. That's insane. I never heard of the Krampus coal thing.
Mm-hmm. So how else would you know that Krampus took your kid and your kid just didn't get eaten by a bear? You know?
You wouldn't. Yeah.
Cool.
Unless the coal's there.
Yeah, exactly.
Or unless the bears wise up.
Yeah. The bear's at the door. So remember, you caught the first one, the Catholic Church. Let's talk about the other team up of the century.
I was gonna say this, but I didn't want to say it. So my grandma was definitely in Nazi Germany, and that was like another no-no. Is they prohibited a lot of stuff, but
yeah, girl, the team up of the century. So in the 16th century, as Christianity was firmly establishing itself across Europe, many aspects of paganism were getting gradually suppressed. The Catholic Church, seeking to establish Christian orthodoxy and extremely suppress pagan customs, viewed figures like Krampus as a dangerous remnant of heathen beliefs. The church condemned Krampus as a demonic figure, associating him with the devil and evil spirits. And again, the devil as a goat iconography comes from this specifically. Church leaders feared that Krampus and similar figures would undermine Christian teachings and spread paganism or heretical ideas. This clash between the Christian and pagan aspects of Yule and Christmas led to attempts to fully Christianize the celebrations. Many areas sought to rid themselves of pagan symbols and stories, seeing them as obsolete to the establishment of Christian order and morality. Krampus, with his horns and now demonic appearance, was an obvious target. And guess who else saw that target? In the early 20th
Jewish people?
Yeah. Worse. No.
Oh, no.
In the early 20th century, during the period of fascist rule in Germany and Austria and the surrounding regions that got, a little taste of fasci, the suppression of Krampus became even more pronounced. The efforts in the 1930s were part of a broader movement to consolidate national identity under fascist regimes and reshape cultural traditions to align with their political and social ideologies. When the Nazi Party came to power, they sought to promote a unified Aryan culture identity that rejected anything perceived as foreign or non-Germanic. And this is where one of the many hypocrisies of the Nazi Party comes along. Because, a lot of ancient Germanic and pagan traditions were celebrated, which is why there's still an obsession with neo-Nazis and Thor. The cult of Thor and Odin is still really heavily influenced in white supremacy, and they also still were loving it and rocking with it during the Nazi Party.
That sucks too, because now there's a shift where people want to culture. You and I have talked about it. We want to explore our cultural identity in a way that doesn't lead back to racism.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're fucking using Viking shit, which is all I had. Now all I have now is keening, which is screaming at funerals. So
yeah.
That's all we got. They're ruining everything.
And I will say, it's hard to find, and this might just be because we live in America as it is now, where it's trying to rebolster Christianity. But the Nazi Party had taken specific Christian-esque values and braided it into the ideology of the fascist regime's vision of society. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to find specifically what they pulled and used because even historical scholars will summarize it as and just so you know, this isn't directly attributed to Christianity. They bastardized the teaching, you know what I mean? Or they changed the context, blah 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 blah. It's saying, and this is another Hassan quote. Shout out. He spoke at Oxford. Shout out, and he said this, and I was oh my god, it's the same thing. It's how saying Zionists represent all of the Jewish people is saying ISIS represents all of Muslims. It's no, you're taking the extremes. So the Nazi Party was considered Christian. And so you could technically say, calling Christians Nazis might not be.
Yeah.
So, but it's hard to figure out what specifically they were pulling from to bolster the Aryan situation. It's hard to say, but that's why they were able to pick and choose. They did a classic cherry picking thing where they were we fuck with Odin because he's strong and German and awesome, and then we don't fuck with Krampus because he's demonic and we're good Christians who believe in the devil. So, and keep in mind they were doing this as they were persecuting people for religion, as they were killing Jewish people, as they were killing Catholics. Again, you can't find reason in what the Nazis did, but this is it's a part of the pie. So the Krampus tradition was seen as inconsistent with the Nazi regime's effort to align traditional practices with nationalistic ideologies. Krampus was associated with pagan beliefs, which were seen as primitive and uncivilized. There's also a name that the Germans called this reformation of national identity. I just didn't put it because I can't pronounce it. So know that was it had a name.
What was it?
I don't remember what it was like.
Reformation of national identity.
Yeah, it was like they had a term for it of this like process.
The new
Good luck, girl.
It's basically new definition, their national identitat. Identitat. Yeah, that's a hard one.
It's a tough
Or
one.
the weird Widerrufbahn der Nationalen Identität. That wasn't
See?
good.
That's why I took it out.
showing.
And I just said,
Thank
I'm
you.
not even going to try it.
You were trying
So
to not embarrass me, and then I embarrassed myself for free, on my own.
it was genuinely the most insane word I've ever seen. So
It's too much. Too
I was
many umlauts.
no fucking way. In the 1930s, Krampus was explicitly banned by the Nazi regime. So your grandma saying it was basically illegal to talk about it, that's why.
Fuck.
Krampus celebrations were prohibited, and the image of Krampus became not just a taboo in official and public life, but like punishable by death, leading to a severe decline in the tradition, obviously and understandably. After World War II, Krampus was all but forgotten in many parts of Europe due to its suppression by both the Catholic Church and the Nazis. You may be asking yourself, well, how the hell do I know about it then?
How the hell do I know about it then? Other than the movie and the shit that I like to look at on Etsy.
Well, you kind of said it. In recent decades, there has been a sort of Krampus revival driven by a mixed bag of factors. The Krampusnacht revival began to take shape in the 80s and 90s, driven by a renewed interest in folklore and cultural heritage. Like what we were doing, trying to figure out your lore, as well as a desire for counterculture expressions of Christmas, which is awesome. And that's genuinely how I found Krampus. I was like, hey, what about all this Jesus stuff? Can we not?
I think you were my first, either you were my first introduction to Krampus or it happened at the exact same time. But my memory of Krampus and you are interchangeable at this point. Like, very connected.
So I was definitely in the counterculture expression of Christmas group. And then that evolved into the group that we find ourselves in, which is an interest in our cultural folklore. So, and the revival was part of a broader interest in pagan traditions and regional folklore across Europe because, like, the suppression had popped off and people were like, wait, what about that actually?
Yeah.
In the 1980s and 90s, there was a growing nostalgia for traditional folk customs across Europe. People began to reclaim and rediscover older regional traditions that had been suppressed during the war and the rise of modern Christmas commercialization. And this is like the regional traditions. Krampus is like an alpine one, but there are so many more. Every region had its own like spin-off, essentially. So it wasn't just Krampus who got revived. There were a bunch of others. The Krampus tradition, once thought of as anti-Christian or taboo or straight up illegal by fucking Nazis, began to reemerge in small communities in Austria, Germany, and Bavaria, where people began to organize informal Krampus runs and parades. The 2000s saw the formalization of Krampusnacht celebrations again in Austria, Germany. In Austria and Germany, Krampus runs, again, I'm not going to say it, the Krampus parades, began to be organized again. So it went from informal gatherings to fully organized by the communities. In Austria, places like Salzburg, Innsbruck, and Vienna became major hubs for Krampus celebrations, where parades, parties, and Krampus balls were organized to showcase the cultural heritage and folklore significance of Krampus. The 2010s marked the peak of the Krampus revival, not only in Europe, but also globally. As the interest in dark Christmas folklore grew, people in countries like the United States, Canada, and the UK began holding their own Krampus celebrations influenced by the traditions from Central Europe. Which reminds me, there's a Krampus beer crawl tomorrow in Salt Lake City, which is funny. But
are you going to go?
No, I'm busy, but I wish. This dark Christmas is just like when you start to look into the history of like why things are. It's like, remember when we figured out what the fuck Halloween was all about, and it was actually all of these like weird, almost ritualistic spell finding love traditions, and we're like, how the fuck did we get here? Like, that's the same thing when someone has the same thought I had when I was like 10, and I was like, wait, if this is about Jesus, why is there a tree in the living room? Like, when you start to ask those
or like
questions.
the Easter bunny. Yeah. Like, why do we have eggs on Easter?
Yeah.
Like stuff like that.
But why is it eggs and a bunny if it's about a resurrection? What the fuck does that have when you start asking these questions, you start to realize where they came from. And Christmas is dark folklore. Christmas is about like, give your respect to the winter and fucking be good so that we get to survive it. And you know what I mean? And we have reverence for it. And we, like, as a whole family, respect it. And like, that's dark. It's about death, and it's about survival, and it's about like the roughness. And so it's Christmas is not like tinsel on the tree and Buddy Holly on the radio. It's more of like, you know, let's hope we don't have to resort to eating the milk cow because it's fucking getting scary out here. You know?
Yeah. So. Like, we don't want to sell the children this year. So.
Exactly. So, and as you kind of bred up, the internet and social media also played a significant role in the spread of Krampus-themed events, as people shared photos and videos of Krampus parades and Krampus costumes, which right now is like the best time to be online because it was on the 5th of December, which was yesterday. So you are seeing like a lot of the footage from the Krampusnacht. And now like a lot of towns have taken on a tradition that it's like young teenage boys. It's like a coming of age thing to like dress up as Krampus and like go fuck around. And it's very cool. So go look up some of those videos. And of course, as Chelsea mentioned, the release of media such as the 2015 horror comedy Krampus brought Krampus back into the mainstream, bringing Krampus back from his Catholic Nazi grave. And that's Krampus.
Isn't it crazy that at the end of the day, we brought him back from the dead? He was resurrected, some may say.
Some may say resurrected.
I love that. I love, it would be really interesting to go through and do a copy paste of all the different Venn diagrams of Christianity versus other religions, or just like not even Christianity, but like how many religions is the goat prominent in? How many religions is like the lamb prominent in? Like just going through and seeing where it's all basically the same, clear back to the Anunnaki, you know, like where's the origin point?
Yeah. Why did it why did it get co-opted? Like, I think that would be super fucking cool. I mean, I definitely want to dig into the Easter Bunny and eggs and what the fuck that came from in regards to resurrection, but because it's the same thing. It's the same thing, but a different font. But yeah, it's just it's cool. I know that some people who are like sensitive to acknowledging the, you know, historical accuracy of like what happened with the religion and stuff like that. Like, I know it's like sometimes a touchy subject, but if you just put like your human like anthropological hat on and you look at it like in the way that I presented, like this was a strategic move by marketing of the church because they needed to like grow their numbers, and they were doing these things specifically to like for ends of a means, you know, means of an end. I mean, like, they were like, fuck, the pagans are like really still loving this fucking shit. Like, how do we stop with the fucking goat guy? And then they're like, let's turn him into the devil.
What's the deal with these airline goat guys?
So it's just, it's all, there's always a reason, and it doesn't have to be nefarious if you don't want it to be. It could just be a strategic move that the church made.
Also, the thing I like to think about when like religion gets challenged like that is organized religion should get fucking challenged. It's good to tear down these dichotomies so that when someone comes to you or you see people like killing in the name of religion or you see full genocides in the name of religion, that was 100% orchestrated by man. Hashtag men. So it's a lot easier for you to be like, oh my God, maybe Israel shouldn't be doing what it's doing to the Palestinians in this holy war, because when you go back to it, we made this aspect of it up. And whatever you believe in shouldn't be torn down by the fact that a goat was, vilified because we didn't want people going to Pan anymore because he was just too much fun. So we had to go.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, also just stop being a little bitch about it and maybe educate. If that stuff starts to like really bother you, then go back to the nitty gritty of what your religion or your faith actually is and find something that is infallible that you can hold on to. And for me, at the end of the day, it's, I don't fucking know what it all means, so I can digest this a lot better. Don't tell me where the chicken nugget is made.
Yeah.
Just let me eat it.
But
I'm also not killing people over chicken nuggets.
Yeah.
So.
I also think that like digesting the history of it all with still respecting your like religion or your beliefs, whatever you want to reference it as, it's actually accepting it.
Yeah.
Is what I would say is like a full belief system, because if you actually accept it, then you are actually referencing the literal Bible and not the man-made alterations to it. And like, if you want to be more connected to your religion and the origins before man started like touching it even more, because you could even say that if man is imperfect, then and he translated it, then there had to have been errors. So like, but if you want to say like, I want to get as close to the source as possible, then you have to accept all of this because this is all the man-made shit. And then that gets you back to the origin. But for some people, reading the Bible is not something they want to do, and they'll just like pick quotes off of Pinterest to go by.
Which is crazy too, because it's like, if you don't want to read the Bible, I get it. But like, here's the thing that like sometimes bothers me with like non-denominational churches is that they'll just read Bible quotes out and it's meant to be inspiring. And I think that's just as damaging. I feel like church should almost be like school, and you're supposed to, and it should be like a philosophy. Like you need to, when they give those like moral, impossible moral questions, like, oh, will you shoot one to save 1,000? You know what I mean? But it's still murder. That's how like I think church should be. And if church isn't that way, it just doesn't seem worthwhile to me. Like you really gotta chew on this. If you're going to believe in this shit and you're going to put your whole life to it, you got to be able to like digest it. And if you're just consuming it like the way you would watch television, that's my problem. That's kind of why I stopped going to church. And when people are like, well, it's non-denominational, I'm like, that's kind of worse. Like, give me something where
it's tangible.
Yeah, give me something where we're dissecting it. I want to go to science class when I'm going to church. I don't want to go to interpretive dance.
Yeah. And it's interesting because like the more I sit with it, the more I even think that like recalling these historical events and these like historical transitions of culture, in my eyes as like a non-believer, places more like realistic relevancy on Christianity, because I always have a hard time believing that like any of that happened and it isn't just like fan fiction.
Yeah.
But when you can like place dates to like, oh no, this is when the Catholic Church came in specifically on this time and started to do this, it's like, oh yeah, like this like power and this like force was actually there. It's not made up. I'm not getting like a recount of a story that was told. Like it's connected to a place in time. So I don't know. It's very interesting, but
yeah. And like one thing, I don't know if I've told this story on podcasts before, but like before I ever started to get tattoos, I was freaked out because people were like, you can't get tattoos, like the Bible doesn't like it. And this is kind of what I mean is I I reached out to my pastor and I went, am I allowed to get tattoos? And I wonder if I even still have like the fucking email. But he was like, yeah, here's why you are able to get tattoos. So this word, tattoo in the Bible, was translated from this. And then when that was translated, it got turned over. Let me see if I can actually just find the email from him, because I have had the same email since junior high.
Yeah, I know you have.
I still have a Hotmail, bitch. That's like, so
I know.
the newest trends in fraud is to flag Hotmail because they're like not a thing anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see if I can find it.
Dude,
That'd
I
be really
raised
cool
you.
if I still have
raised
it.
you one. My parents still rock an AOL at
I still have an
AOL.com.
AOL account.
And
That
see,
doesn't
you guys are
scare me at all.
insane. You're insane,
It
actually.
doesn't scare me. It doesn't scare me. Let me see here if I can do people from. Does it even matter at this point? Should I just paraphrase it?
Paraphrase it.
Well, so basically, he was like, here is why you're allowed to get it. So, what happens in the Bible is that this has been translated over and over and over again. But at the end of the day, what was happening is people were doing death worship and having death cults to the point where they were cutting themselves and then rubbing ashes from the dead into their skin. That's the no. Don't worship and do a cult ritual where you're trying to do some sort of fucking necromancy. That is so far removed from what a tattoo actually is. There is nothing in the Bible that says don't get tattoos. And he was like, my wife's going to get a tattoo. Like,
that's actually such tea. I love that. See, that's what I love. I love when we go historical in the context.
That's what I like too. And that's why, like, I don't go to church anymore, because I can't find that energy.
Mm-hmm.
And it really sucks, because that's what I really liked. And that's why I say I was like, oh, so I'm so lucky that I got the religious upbringing that I did, because that's the religious upbringing that I got.
Mm-hmm.
Or when it was like Sodom and Gomorrah says you can't have gay people, and then my pastor comes in with like essentially his doctorate in Greek, like because he could read the original Greek in the Bible. He'd be like, actually, and he would fucking dunk on all these people trying to use religion to be hateful, and he would use people to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have that anymore. So.
No. A nuance is lost and context is lost, because the same critical thinking skills that allow you to look at something within the historical context that it was said to have been done and written is the same critical thinking skills that you would need to like discern like propaganda and like fake news and like
Exactly.
We just don't have that anymore. So it makes sense that it's just all but been forgotten.
Yeah. That should be a new school thing. Like instead of teaching, oh my God, get rid of home ec and teach media literacy.
I 1,000,000% agree with that. I think that's a necessary thing. So, yeah. So anyway, that's Krampus. And speaking of Krampus, we have officially put up our secret Satan. I decided to give it a more, I don't know, equitable name for people who may be offended by my love of talking about Satan. So it's now called a Very Go to Hell holiday. But I mean, it's secret Satan to me. Join before December 11th. That's when we're going to be picking the names. It's obviously a gift exchange. The link to sign up is in our link tree, which is in all of our bios. We are at Go to Hell Podcast. I am at Noelle Fain. That is at Sithlard. And also in that link tree, you can find a link to our Patreon. It was a fun episode today, and $1 gets you in. You can also find a link to the Mosaics in Provo, Utah, which is a United Drag Alliance center, community center. You can also find a link to AFC Palestine, which gives resources both financially and non-financially to like help support and educate about the situation there, about the current genocide against the Palestinian people. You can find our merch. 100% of proceeds are donated, and some would say we're inspired. Some would say we're inspired by events that took place this week, and we have just been pumping out stuff. We've been pumping out our feelings in the form of merch. So go check it out. Literally check it out like every day because we're putting new shit up constantly and it's very fun.
Yeah, and stuff I realize that the holidays coming up, it's hard.
You tired?
I just became.
You tired?
Is that
like Irish?
Did I just like transfer to the East Coast? I sounded like I was from fucking.
That was not. That was
Pennsylvania. Like I heard.
That was very
birds.
That was East, as in like Eastern European.
It just became Eastern European, probably because the all the smog is getting to my head.
Dude, I know.
If you cannot buy, please share, because sharing the type of merch that we have, like Jedi, my favorite still is Jedi or Sith. Hating trans folks make you a bitch. Noelle came up with that and I love it. Share that kind of stuff because then it lets people know on your social media, like it just puts that kind of mentality out into the world. So if you can't afford to buy, I get it. Merch from Bonfire is expensive. We try to make it as cheap as possible. But just like and share. Or if you just want the art files, let me know. If I have them, I'll send them to you for free. And then you can just print on your own.
Some places have like we have here Gen X, and you can like buy a t-shirt for like $3 and then they'll like print on it for like $2. So if you want to do something like that, we'll give it to you for free, but I'll give it to you faster if you also show us you donating somewhere, even if it's like $3, or even if it's you handing out essential supplies to people during the holiday season, or maybe doing one of the angel Christmas trees, anything. We would love to gift that over to you. We have a link to subscribe to us on YouTube. Please like, subscribe, follow, comment, because YouTube really fucking hates us. And we also have a link to Kelly Holloran or at Wildwood Owl on Etsy. She makes cool shit for us. She makes cool shit in general. And we have our Discord server, which people have been talking in again. I'm so sorry. I'm really bad at it. I'm really fucking bad at it.
See, I'll monitor the Facebook, but you got to monitor.
That's not fair. The Facebook's dead. No one uses Facebook. Oh my God. So, yeah. And I don't know why you'd need it, but it's there, and it's links to listen to us, which is anywhere podcasts are heard. So
that's nice.
I'm gonna go ahead and say, first of all, just to keep it classic, I'll give a Hail Satan, but I'll also give a Hail Krampus and hail all of the figures of history and culture that we lost due to the colonization of Christianization.
Hail to the time my teacher said that the enemy of culture is missionary work. And I think about that all the fucking time.
That's it, dude. That's it. That's the tea right there. So on that note, let's get the fuck out of here.
Okay, bye.
Bye.